Not everyone's life looked as colorful as Mateo's. It seemed like luck was on his side in everything. He had a large and close-knit family, celebrating every event with joy and extravagance, which wasn't always affordable for other families. He was lucky with his education, getting into exactly where he had hoped. He was fortunate with friends from a young age. And even when he started working, it could confidently be said that he also incredibly lucked out in finding a good company, high pay, and a cohesive team. But with his wife, Mateo was luckiest of all. Isabel had always been an enviable bride, beautiful and intelligent, a wonderful dancer, a kind and cheerful girl who grew into a beautiful woman. From their very first dates, Mateo won Isabel's heart, trying his best to show her how enchanted he was by her. Every time they met, he would give her a single flower, accompanying each gift with a small card adorned with beautiful words. "You are as beautiful as the bud of this rose, you allure me like a flower attracts a bee." These and many other words he wrote to her while they were still in school. Later, when he could afford to buy whole bouquets and other gifts, he wrote genuine poems, comparing his beloved to goddesses and muses who had inspired mortals throughout history. "Your eyes shine brighter than the stars," he whispered to her every time they walked late into the evening. Isabel liked to hear this, and she loved Mateo for those romantic gestures with which he was always ready to shower her. Many hearts were broken by Isabel's choice of Mateo as her spouse. For many years they rejoiced and grieved together, enduring many trials both during their studies and afterward, in their respective workplaces. Years went by, and these two never parted, and finally, Mateo proposed to Isabel. When he did, he couldn't imagine she would agree. He was afraid she would realize that she could find a man much more attractive and wealthy. And although he carefully planned the day, starting with dinner at a new restaurant Isabel had been eager to visit, and ending on the waterfront under bright bursts of fireworks, he was so nervous that he even forgot to kneel. As soon as he saw Isabel's eyes, reflecting the flashes of fireworks launched into the dark skies, he drowned in them, completely forgetting about the words he had prepared and the traditional gesture he was supposed to make before asking her this incredibly important question. "Marry me," he exhaled, catching the gaze of her bottomless dark eyes, burning with overflowing happiness. She agreed without hesitation, not even noticing that he hadn't knelt before her. For her, the main thing was that he finally asked her the question she had been dreaming of for years on end. Mateo's joy knew no bounds. Isabel chose him. They had a rich wedding in every sense. Both of their extensive families celebrated for several days, joyfully and loudly rejoicing in their union. At first, Mateo feared that their fiery relatives would find a reason to quarrel, but seemingly, everyone forgot their disagreements. But after the honeymoon, although their married life continued to be smooth and harmonious, something just didn't work out. Their parents didn't pressure them much about having children, but they hinted that they would like to see grandchildren. However, months passed, and Isabel still couldn't get pregnant. For the first few years, Mateo didn't express his dissatisfaction. After all, there could be many reasons. He even spared no expense on doctors, but they said that both spouses were healthy, and the absence of a child could be due to the stress they both experienced at work. Mateo became even more attentive to Isabel. He started taking her out for romantic dinners and dates more often, showered her with gifts, and organized the most relaxing vacations he could. And thanks to his attention and care, his beautiful wife blossomed even more, much to the envy of the wives of all his colleagues and acquaintances. Everything would have been fine, but colleagues as well as their wives began to whisper behind Mateo's back. "Look, she bought a new dress." They pointed to Isabel, who came to Mateo's workplace. "Spending money again, poor thing. Probably, she'll leave him soon for someone else. Look at how she looks. Some wife she is, can't even give him a child." At first, Mateo didn't listen to all this. But over time, every such word began to slowly undermine him from within. He could have been influenced by all these rumors and speculations, but one day Isabel rushed to him at work, radiant with joy. He was used to them having lunch together quite often, but for the first time, he saw her so smiling and glowing. "Mateo, I have wonderful news. I'm pregnant, Isabel told her husband without waiting for them to be alone. Whatever doubts crept into Mateo's soul, this news alone made him forget about everything. They had been trying for so long to have a child that he had already given up hope, but a miracle happened, and Isabel blessed him with the most beautiful news she could give him. Enthralled by this, Mateo forgot about all the rumors and doubts for a long time. He again carried her in his arms and showered her with various gifts. Happy, they turned one of the rooms into a nursery, and Mateo allowed Isabel to choose any decorations and colors she wanted to see. And when they found out during a visit to the doctor that they were expecting twins, Mateo was ecstatic. All the years they spent without children were rewarded, and with twins. He always wanted a large family, and twins were not an obstacle, but rather added to their happiness. Especially since the twins turned out to be a boy and a girl. He enjoyed the new life with his beautiful wife and couldn't get enough of her smiles. Finally, their family would be complete. With the birth of the children, the nursery was filled with things now. Instead of one crib, there were two, and the room was equipped in a way that many of their visiting guests envied. On the day when Mateo brought Isabel home from the hospital with the twins, he felt like he was on cloud nine with happiness. And although many of his colleagues and comrades wouldn't understand him, he spent a lot of time with his wife and children, helping Isabel with what usually fell exclusively on women's shoulders. Even their own mothers scolded him for such behavior, but Mateo didn't care, because he shared with Isabel the care for their children, and seeing her smile and the smiles of his children was more important to him. What could possibly be wrong? Mateo would come home from work to loving children and a wife who quickly regained her shape after childbirth. However, less than a year had passed before rumors began to spread again, and Mateo could no longer easily brush them off. The children didn't resemble him at all, Isabel regained her figure too quickly, and his wife looked just as beautiful and sexy as before pregnancy. Not a day went by when Mateo didn't hear something similar at work. And although his colleagues tried to speak quietly about it, he still heard them. And how does he not see this? The children are curly-haired, but he and Isabel are not, whispered one colleague. No, it's impossible to regain your figure so quickly, another colleague whispered, condemning how quickly Isabel had regained her slimness. It's all because this flirt has someone to impress, another one gossiped. Mateo began to doubt, was it all just like that? Maybe those who gossiped behind Isabel's back were right, and she wasn't as simple as he would like to think. He started to pay closer attention to the children. Indeed, their skin was lighter, their eye shape didn't resemble his, and their hair was curly, not straight like his and Isabel's. And then he noticed that Isabel was becoming more and more secretive. And, seemingly, she still smiled, still tender and caring towards him, still ready to listen and advise, but something had changed in her. Sometimes she would leave the room to take a call and no longer leave her phone lying around, always carrying it with her. Once he couldn't help but accidentally overhear one of these conversations. I get goosebumps every time he speaks. Isabel breathed out with a soft chuckle. Oh, and when he takes off his shirt, oh God, what a man. These words troubled Mateo, and he pondered he hadn't found time to properly take care of himself and return to training. He used to regularly run and engage in sports, but now he didn't do it because of tiredness after work. He began to think that Isabel was definitely hiding something from him. At first, he didn't even know how to approach the situation that had arisen, and he hesitated for a long time before gathering the courage to ask her directly. Isabel, are you hiding something from me? I noticed that you started taking your phone with you, and now you only take calls when leaving the room. What do I have to hide, darling? She smiled in response, hugging him. I have nothing to hide. Then explain why you started taking your phone with you instead of leaving it lying around? I've become more responsible, that's all. You yourself scolded me for always losing it. And with the kids, the phone has become useful. I can watch over the little ones when they sleep and not miss when they need my attention. And the calls? You used to always talk in front of me, but now you always leave. Darling, Do you really want to hear about diapers and onesies or the TV shows I chat with my mom and friends about after a long day at work? I understand that you're tired, even though you help me with our little angels in the evening. I'm the one on maternity leave now, and you should rest, and I understand that. Isabel waved off. Her responses sounded quite reasonable, and Mateo accepted them, though he harbored suspicions that it was all just a cover for something else. Doubts began to gnaw at him even after their conversation. And though Isabel habitually reached out to him, showering him with attention and affection, he grew somewhat distant towards her. Too much of what Isabel did seemed suspicious to him. Then he heard new rumors about his wife at work. I'm telling you for sure. I saw Isabel with some man. And they were hugging, whispered one of Mateo's female colleagues to another. Right in front of everyone, can you imagine? Oh my God. Should we tell Mateo? He's such a good man. The other replied. How do I even tell him, for God's sake? He'll call me a gossip. He loves that little flirt so much. Mateo didn't tell his colleagues that he overheard their conversation, but he deeply pondered over all the signs of infidelity he had seen in his wife's behavior. Over the next few weeks, he contemplated how he could understand what was really happening with his wife. He was cautious and didn't seek advice from friends or colleagues. Instead, he turned to the internet, where he easily found ways to catch his wife in the act. He read various accounts from people who had been in similar situations, memorized possible methods of testing Isabel's loyalty, and gradually began to plan when and how to execute the most crucial test of his life. As much as he feared being one of those men who discovered the cruel truth about their spouse's infidelity, he still resolved to do it. The simplest method he noted for himself was to write Isabel a farewell letter, hide, and see what she would do when she read it. However, as he sat down with a sheet of paper and a pen in front of him, Mateo couldn't figure out how to write the letter. Beautiful and warm memories of their love flooded his mind, of how they rejoiced together in any event, and how happily they had lived for many years. For a long time, he sat there, trying to write at least a few lines. And time after time, he failed, crumpling up the started letter and starting anew. Finally, he managed to gather his thoughts and express everything in a way that the letter seemed sincere and not too harsh towards Isabel. He didn't mention his suspicions, but stated in the letter that he didn't feel the same as before when he was with her. He confessed to her that her detachment made him feel the need to be alone with himself and reflect on the situation. He ended the letter by saying that he still loved her. Mateo hoped that this letter would, if not make Isabel repent for her transgressions, at least make her think about what she had done. But deep down, he also hoped that he was wrong. He desperately wanted their life to return to normal, although he saw unfamiliar traits in their children. Finally, Mateo chose a day when he took time off from work and placed the prepared letter in the most visible place while Isabel wasn't home. She had gone somewhere with the twins. This gave Mateo enough time to find a suitable hiding spot where she wouldn't find him. He chose a wardrobe as his hiding spot, positioned conveniently enough to overhear conversations throughout most of the house. Concealed within, he tried not to dwell on what might happen if Isabel suddenly decided to peek inside. When his wife returned, Mateo heard the rustle of paper and a prolonged silence as Isabel read his letter. He began to think the silence was lasting too long, but then came the sound of the letter hitting the floor, followed by a quiet sob. Isabel was crying. Mateo almost smiled, ready to exhale with relief, but then he heard the woman retrieve her phone from her purse and dial a number. "Hello," she whispered, her voice trembling. Mateo froze, listening intently, and suddenly realized the woman whispered a man's name. Yes, Diego. Mateo couldn't believe his ears. His beloved wife Isabel was cheating on him. Isabel sobbed, but continued speaking, very softly, barely audible. "Are you coming?" "Okay, Diego, I'll wait." Mateo clenched his fists, unable to believe such treacherous betrayal. He loved her so much, worshipped her, showered her with gifts, did everything for her, and she betrayed him. Suddenly, Isabel spoke again. This time, it seemed, she was talking to someone completely different. Gabriel, everything's so bad. Mateo almost swore aloud, another man. Isabel was cheating on him not with one, but with two men simultaneously. He left me. Do you understand? Gabriel, what should I do? For a while, she listened to the man on the other end of the line, then sighed. Okay. Isabel's voice quieted briefly, and she seemed to gradually calm down. But after a couple of minutes, she picked up the phone again. Pablo, it's me. Isabel whispered with a breaking voice. Yes. No. It's something else. Mateo didn't know what to think anymore. 3 men. How was she managing to juggle affairs with 3 men behind his back? Yes, no, it's not worth it. Isabel's voice seemed to drive another nail into Mateo's heart with each word. Okay. I'll wait. Again, silence fell, and Mateo pondered whether to leave his hiding place now or wait until one of his wife's lovers showed up. Mentally, he was already considering calling his lawyer friend to initiate divorce proceedings. But curiosity got the better of him. If he caught Isabel with a lover, he could capture it on his phone and have evidence of her infidelity. That would help resolve the divorce and asset division much faster. The quiet melody of Isabel's phone ringing made Mateo tense up and listen again. Yes? Isabel wiped away her tears. Rafael. Mateo couldn't help but feel an even greater shock. Another one? This conversation seemed one-sided. Isabel remained silent, only sighing occasionally before hanging up the phone. Not knowing what to think, Mateo forced himself to calm down and be patient, although rage burned inside him. Soon, Mateo heard a car pulling up to the house. A couple of moments later, the front door opened, and Isabel, judging by the sounds, threw herself into the arms of the person who entered, sobbing loudly. The man said something to her, but Mateo couldn't hear. He was too far from the door to catch their conversation, but he could vividly imagine everything that could have been said. A couple of minutes later, 2 more cars pulled up, and Mateo was stunned. Now Isabel wouldn't be able to wriggle out of it. If all her lovers found out about each other, there would be no avoiding scandal. However, no matter how much he strained to listen, he heard no shouting, no fighting, no signs of any disagreements. On the contrary, it seemed to him as if all 3 men were collectively comforting the sobbing Isabel once again. What's going on there? Mateo whispered. He didn't delay any longer and emerged from his hiding place, ready to confront his wife and her lovers. However, as soon as he approached them, all his indignation and prepared words got stuck in his throat. Standing before him were 3 of his friends, with whom he had lost touch some time ago because they had moved to other cities. The only stranger was the man embracing his wife. He suddenly realized that 2 of his friends, Gabriel and Diego, had thick curly hair, and one of them could indeed be the father of the twins. Noticing him, all 5 looked at Mateo with confusion and anger. Mateo, explain yourself. Rafael, the least angered, stepped forward first. Mateo forced himself to shake off the shock and puffed out his chest, masking his confusion with anger. I'm the one who has to explain. How dare you all? I'm the victim of my wife's infidelity, whom I've idolized all these years. What? Isabel gasped, shocked by his words. Yes, indeed. Don't deny it. You cheated on me. And with whom? With my own friends. That's why the children don't resemble me. Everyone who warned me was right. Mateo ranted, unleashing all the rumors he had heard for years. The people before him were speechless, listening to him with widened eyes until he finally ran out of steam. Isabel, seemingly finding her voice first, said, So that's how it is. He used to love hearing this tone from her when she suddenly became composed and calm amidst an argument. Previously, he was amazed by her ability to calm herself and rationally think about the problem they faced, to fix everything and move forward again. But this time he heard that tone in a completely different light. Have you lost your mind, amigo? Gabriel exclaimed. And you haven't? Cheating on your own wife with Isabel and now trying to blame me? Mateo shouted. What are you talking about? Where did you get such nonsense in your head? Raphael snapped. Beauty, is this your husband? Asked the man embracing Isabel. Is this the man you've been boasting about? He's quite average, I must say, sweetheart. I wonder why I bothered bringing beauty to a goddess like you for this. Mateo frowned, noticing the stranger's peculiar mannerisms. Pablo. Isabel shook her head. Listen to me, sweetheart, as a stylist who knows a thing or two about life, okay? If your man is only looking for the bad in you, he'll find it, no matter how hard you try. The man waved his hand, making an elegant, feminine gesture. You may shine like gold, but if he thinks you smell of manure, that's what you'll be to him. Who are you, damn it? Mateo exclaimed indignantly at Pablo. My name's Pablo, darling, but rest assured, I won't encroach on you even if you pour a bottle of tequila over me, the man brushed off. Isabel always described you as a handsome man with a pure heart, but I see right through you, sweetheart. Gabriel met Mateo's gaze and grimly gritted his teeth. So, you lied to Isabel? I didn't lie, I was testing her. She's cheating on me. Are you an idiot? Diego shook his head. Isabel held the man back. Enough, she declared. I understand everything now. It was pointless gathering you for the alumni reunion. It was pointless trying to surprise Mateo. He had already made up his mind long ago. Well, Mateo, it's good that I took the kids to my mother's. They won't hear this. Don't you dare use the kids as an excuse. They clearly aren't mine if they're curly-haired. They don't even resemble me. Mateo shouted, unable to speak calmly. Oh, so that's it. The kids aren't yours, and your wife's cheating. And you refuse to listen. Isabel became the woman he once loved. Her dark eyes became stern and confident, but now they were directed at him, not the problems they used to solve together. What's there to listen to? Your empty excuses? Mateo truly didn't want to hear anything. Fool. Diego spat at his friend's feet. Isabel raised her head proudly. Maybe you'll listen to the truth? As if you could explain why the kids don't look like me. And what about your grandfather? Have you forgotten about him? You don't like the curls, do you? Your grandfather had curly hair, and even before my pregnancy, you sighed, saying how nice it would be if the kids had curls like your grandfather. Isabel's eyes shot lightning. Forgot? Mateo was bewildered, but quickly recalled one of the rumors. And the man my colleague saw you with? You were hugging him. Darling, that's just how we greet each other. Pablo looked at his nails, disdainfully snorting. We're good friends. I have a husband of my own. Your woman means nothing to me. And what about the conversations? You were talking to someone about a man. For a few moments, Isabel pondered, and Mateo thought he finally caught her. Are you talking about last Wednesday? Isabel raised an eyebrow. When Anna and I were discussing the new episode of our favorite soap opera. Oh, Alejandro, Pablo sighed exaggeratedly next to Isabel. What a man. Such shoulders. Raphael shook his head, covering his face with his palm. Mateo, you're really an idiot. You're looking for a catch where there isn't one. But Mateo began to gasp with indignation. We were trying to surprise you. Isabel crossed her arms over her chest. And with your vile act, you turned it all into some nightmare. I wanted to gather our friends for a reunion, surprise you with the arrival of Raphael, Gabriel, and Diego. Pablo volunteered to help me find a dress and beautify, and you're only thinking about how to accuse me of infidelity. Silence fell again, and Isabel shook her head, stepping towards her purse and heading for the exit. Pablo, be a dear, take me to Mom's. Isabel asked her stylist. Of course, darling. He responded, glanced at Mateo with a displeased look, and followed her out. Mateo wanted to follow, but his three friends stopped him. For the next few hours, he heard a lot about himself from his friends. They didn't skimp on evidence, showing him their conversations with Isabel where they discussed the upcoming reunion. Tears of guilt and regret streamed down Mateo's face as he couldn't believe he had single-handedly destroyed his beautiful life with Isabel because of some rumors and speculations he heard from people who knew nothing about his life. For the first 2 days, Isabel didn't even pick up his calls. But on the third day, Mateo went to her mother's house with a huge bouquet of flowers and knelt at the door when Isabel opened it. "Forgive me," Mateo pleaded, looking up at her. "Ugh." Isabel's mother passed behind her. "Fool, not a man." "Fool." Mateo agreed with his mother-in-law. "A complete fool." "Forgive me, Isabel." Isabel sighed heavily, and her angry eyes softened. "Do you realize you could have lost me because of rumors? Because you believed others instead of the person closest to you?" Mateo could no longer speak, only nodding. "No matter how many times I tell you, listen to your heart, not the words of strangers." Isabel knelt before him and set aside the bouquet. "I never wanted to betray you, dear. Because you are the most wonderful man. Kind, romantic, loving. Just sometimes foolish." He couldn't reply. Isabel kissed him on the lips, and Mateo realized she had forgiven him. Now he just had to make amends to her and forgive himself for being so insecure that he began to doubt the faithfulness of his wife. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.